Okay, it's been a little while since I posted the last video. Basically, somewhere between this and the previous video, my computer restarted on its own, and Unity did not shut down correctly, and so some of my work was lost, and I kind of had to recreate it. The actual scripts were fine, so it's really just recreating the object. So you might see things listed slightly different or named slightly different. Not a problem, we'll get through it. Now, I don't think we had actually saved our work. That's what this is. When you save your work, it gets saved in the form of a scene. So what's a scene? A scene is basically a collection of functionality, related functionality, that you're going to use more than likely repeatedly. So an RPG, a turn-based RPG, the actual combat, so a background loads, a monster loads, your characters load, that functionality is actually a scene. You make the scene once, and whether you have 5,000 battles or 100,000 battles, you use that same one scene over and over and over again, and just using various scripts, you say, okay, what background loads in, and so on and so forth. So if there's 10,000 battles, you don't need 10,000 scenes. You need one scene that just gets used over and over again. The other reason why you could use a scene is maybe functionality is going to be similar, but certain things are going to be different. So that would be an example of, say, like a side-scrolling shooter. You've got 8 levels. Well, the functionality is basically the same between all 8 levels, but the art assets are going to be different, and the backgrounds are different, the enemy formations are different. So what you do is you copy the scene, and then you just make changes to it. So you either use the same scene over and over again, or you make duplicates of a scene because the difference is really too much to handle in just one scene. So that's a couple of reasons why you would have scenes. So just go ahead and do that. Now go up to File, Save Scene, and I call it Letters 4. The reason why is for a game like this, you increase the amount of letters down here. So what we'll probably do, unless I change my mind, is each scene will be all the letters of that amount. So all the times we have 4 letters, it will be this scene. I'll create another one with 5, 6, 7, 8 letters, something like that. We'll see how far we get. Okay, so we said that right now this is set to a default value. These 4 are all set to default values. And so we only have a small selection of words that can be made. So we're going to do 2 things. A, we're going to create a linkage between these objects and the GM object. The reason why is then in the GM script we can then modify these objects. So rather than having them default to these letters, the GM can reach out and change these. So A, we need 4 new variables, transform variables for these objects, and then we're going to create 4 list variables. Those list variables, each one will correspond to a letter, and that list will have like 20 letters, whatever. And that will determine what letters will appear based on what is typically using a random number generator. Or maybe you want certain letters to appear in a certain order every time. That's your choice how you want to design the game. So in the GM script, let's come up here and create those 4 variables. So public, transform, and since they're called bottom letter, we'll call them bottom L1 OBJ. And again, I don't always do it, but I like to put the letters OBJ to remind myself that it's an object. So when I see it in a list, I shouldn't say a list, when I see it in this menu, when this menu shows up, I'll know that it's an object. It's a variable that references an object. So bottom L2 OBJ, public transform bottom L3 OBJ, public transform bottom L4 OBJ. We'll save that. So watch what happens. So that script is attached to the GM. Here's the new variables. So like I said, your naming might be slightly different because I had to recreate this, but you're just taking these letter objects, and it really doesn't matter which one. It doesn't matter which one relates to which variable, because order down here does not matter. What matters is the order in which you click on them when you're playing the game. So the actual layout does not matter. So here's the new variables, and we'll just drag and drop them onto them. So the 4 bottom letter, and there we go. So now, for one of a better term, one of a better way of saying it, the GM object is now aware of these. It's linked to them and can now modify them. Now we've already done something similar to that, because if you notice here, again in the GM script, we did a similar thing where we took a transform variable and then we changed the component. In fact, this is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to set the value of those letters, the text attribute of the text mesh component of those objects, we're going to set it to different letters. So this is going to be temporary, what I'm going to do, but I just kind of want to ease you into the idea, although, like I said, we've already done something similar. So let's take, and this will probably eventually move to the update section, but for now we'll do it in the start section. So bottom one object dot get component. Oops. So text mesh dot text. And what we're going to do is this will get set to a variable. We haven't actually created the variable yet, though. So for the moment, we're just going to put in a constant. So we'll make this one W. And then what, like I said, this is temporary. We're just going to come back and put the permanent stuff in a minute. So I'm just copying and pasting because I'm being lazy. So the beginning here are these 4. Then get component text mesh dot text, and then the letter that you want in here. Now this doesn't break anything because the script that lets you click on an object, it looks at that attribute. So we're changing that attribute, so this will still work. So if we run this, actually, did these change? Is there in exactly the same order? Let's just make sure they really changed. What I'll do is I'll wipe out here. So I was expecting them to appear in a different order. Maybe by coincidence it is the same, but I'm thinking not. Huh, okay, guess so. Another way to do it, we'll just switch 2 of these. E was there. Yeah, this is different now because this is pushed over. So let's click on that one because that's telling me it's not, yeah, upper left, it's not centered. There we go. So now I have to move it. No, that's fine. Maybe just down a little. All right, so we've confirmed by wiping out the default values that these indeed are now applying to them. So like I said, this was really a transitional step. The next thing is to create the list to change these. And let's do that in this lesson. So public list string, and we'll call this letter. No, we already use letter 1, so we don't want to do that. Let's use we also use bottom letter. So let's call this avail letter 1, as in available letter 1, equals new list string. And we'll make this say B, and then we're just going to close it. We're eventually going to do like this. We're going to put out a whole bunch of different letters, but for now I just want to make sure this transfers correctly. Copy, paste, and just keep changing this to, and we'll make, say, letter A, available 3, make this an L, available 4, also make this an L. So obviously a 3-letter word would be ball, a 4-letter word would be ball, another 3-letter word could be lab. So what are we doing? We now need to take this and we need to put it here. So the way that it works, and again we came across the idea here, is when you're reading or writing to a list, you have to say what position you want to read from or write to. So right now we only have one position, and it's the 0 position. So let's take, why is that giving me, for some reason, doesn't like it. It's giving me a little squiggly under there. So public list string, my apologies, those should not be there. Sorry about that. Save that. And so now what we're going to do is, like I said, so we need to use this variable, and then we need to say what position we want. And again, we're eventually going to have a random number generator to say what position we're going to be looking at, but for now, we only have the 0 position. So, avail letter 1 bracket 0. And again, it's annoying, but the first position is the 0 position. And I think we'll just copy and paste this. And so this should be avail letter 2, avail letter 3, avail letter 4, and it's all in the 0 position. So if I have not made any mistakes, then what will happen is instead of W-I-N-E, we should now see B-A-L-L. Okay, no error message. Perfect. And so now we've done it. We're not quite there yet, but now we've taken a static, fixed, single value, and now we've replaced it with a variable. So now it's just a matter of adding all the other letters to each of these variables. And then, like I said, we're going to add a random number generator, and that random number generator will be put right here. And so that way you have across the list, you're using the same one. So whether it be the position 0, position 1, position 2, you want to use them all across the board. So like this, obviously it was the intention of spelling the word ball. You want to make sure you're using the 0 position of all the lists. And the same thing, so you're going to generate a single random number and then use that position across the lists. So let's stop right there and let that sink in, and then I will come back with another video. So we're getting close. Like I said, once the random number generator is there, then really that's all that left is saying, okay, what are the correct words for that random number? Okay, so that should do it for the moment then.